Hello,
Hi Paul, how you doing?
I'm all right. Nice to meet you.
Excellent, you too. I saw you had a stand at the nursery managers show on Friday.
Um,
Conference rather than show. Conference and then an evening.
I don't know. Did we?
I don't know, I didn't stop to talk, but I thought I saw you in the
No,
hall.
no, no. I don't think we did.
Hmm.
There's been a few like that though. There's a couple of big conferences happening. I think it's the time of year.
Yeah. Yeah, I could have sworn it was you guys, and I just didn't manage to get around everybody because they
uh,
had stands actually within the room where the actual conference was, so you could only get to the stands during the breaks. So it was a
mm,
bit of a scrum, but it's actually a really good one to do, the nursery owners show.
yes, yeah. Because
Uh,
we were down. I was down in Eastbourne recently, and there's a nursery there that it sort of promotes itself as being a bit of a beach nursery,
oh
where
yeah,
they take
yeah,
the students out onto the beach,
yeah,
and I think they
yeah,
spend most days there's some sort of activity going on the beach. Uh,
lovely. Yeah, really, really nice to be able to spend the day on the beach. Some of ours do that as well, but the nurseries aren't right on the beach, but we've
no,
got
so
a
it's not as
couple that,
easy.
yeah, we've got one that's within walking range, so they do go down, but it's not a short walk,
Mm-hmm.
it's quite a safe walk. They're fortunate. It's a no traffic. They've just got to cross 3 roads, I think, but the rest of the actual walk is safe. So that's
Mm-hmm.
quite nice. Yeah, beaches I find are quite challenging for small children. I used to do it when I was working on the floor because you have to be so careful that they don't.
Yeah, as an environment, it's
Yeah,
high risk.
high risk. Yeah, I've certainly picked kids up off the bottom in the water. Obviously not after a second or something, but nevertheless it's always a worry. They're paddling 1 minute and the next minute they're
Yeah,
underneath the water and you think, oh.
we did one of my children. I've got two children, kind of 5 and 7, and we did
Yeah.
7-year-old's birthday party at the beach last year.
Ooh.
And we had maybe about 10 children, and we kind of just about managed it. It was all right being in the water with them. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, and we
it's
were obviously there
really
was a
hot.
lifeguard and all that sort of stuff. But to keep an eye on
Yeah,
everyone, it's
yes, that's not relaxing for a parent, is it? You've got to have eyes in
no,
the back of your head and just be
yeah.
100% alert the whole time.
It's when also you've got children who are a bit more confident, or if anything, overconfident.
Yes, absolutely. One of my granddaughters is like that. She thinks she's totally immortal.
Mm,
And she's 5. She thinks she'd have learned better by now, but she hasn't. And she doesn't swim competently, so it's not great when she leaps in. Because of course, all swimming lessons were stopped during COVID,
oh yes,
and have been really slow to restart. And although I'm a swimming teacher, it's just
yeah.
I can't be there to do her once a week lesson when the pool's not even open.
I might just go and grab my phone and give Hannah a message,
Sure.
check
Yeah,
she's
that's
okay.
fine. Yeah. I see Susie's on the call. Hi, Susie, how are you? I'll ask you to unmute. Strange.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Susie. Hi. Where are you from?
So I'm in Essex. I actually work for Essex County Council. So,
Essex Council. Oh, hi. Nice to meet you.
and you?
Looking very quiet so far.
I know.
Even Thabani, who's my assistant, hasn't made it onto the call yet. So I hope there's not a problem with some internet, because they can be, can't they? We'll give them a few minutes yet. Anyway, this is Paul Turner, by the way. Paul.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Hello.
Always good to have local authority people on.
Definitely, yeah.
We're about to launch a climate pact, so I thought for early years.
Ooh.
So I thought come and steal some tips.
Definitely, yeah. So we'll learn about Ministry of Eco Education. Obviously, there's the stuff on the GECO website as well. So hopefully we'll have lots of information there to keep you going. I think Hannah's also with Paul, isn't she? Hannah, hi Hannah.
Excellent.
Here we go. Thabani's made it on. He's my assistant. He's going to be recording the meeting so that people who miss it can attend later, because that's one of the issues we find with early years. It just takes no shows from staff for whatever reason, and then the managers who would be attending this meeting have to go on the floor. So we record it, and then people can watch it from GECO. You got it set on record, Thabani? I can't see it is from this end.
Yes, it is recorded.
Fabulous, well done. I can't see when I've got it when I'm sharing my screen. It's one of the things with Zoom, isn't it, to get your ways around it. Okay, so and we've got Kirsty and Atlanta, and they're from one of our top nurseries in Hampshire.
Hello.
Hi there. Well done for making it on.
Thank you.
Is it really two of you or just one?
No, it is two of us. She's just on the toilet.
Lovely. Thank you for that detail. I've got my coffee. Have you all got your coffees? Because hopefully this will be an enjoyable period. Probably won't be an hour and a half actually. We'll just give people a few more minutes before Paul gets started, so that people have got a chance to get on. We'll give it till 5 past. While we're waiting, I've just heard of a new award for sustainability that's come on. This isn't in the AOB or the minutes, but I've been sent an email by Marie Claire UK. I think that's a women's magazine. I don't know if anybody else knows of that name, but Marie Claire UK Sustainability Awards have just sent me something on entering. So anybody that's interested and on the journey might find that interesting. We'll attach it to the minutes for people who've missed. I know it's expensive to apply for some awards, but I don't know if this one's a free one or a chargeable one. It's looking free. Oh no, there is a payment. Confirm your payment and you're done. So, it's quite a lot as well. £250 plus VAT per brand, per category. That knocks us out. We won't be applying. But some of you might potentially be interested. It's the trouble with these awards. And even if they're free to enter, you quite often end up having to pay for hotels or dinners and things like that. So you've really got to need it for your advertising if you want an award. And one exception for that was the Queen's Award. There was no charge to apply for that and no obligation to pay for anything. And in fact, the cocktail party at Buckingham Palace was for free. So that's a really nice one to get. Another couple of minutes and then we'll get started. Even though it's quiet, at least people will be able to watch the recording, and we'll be able to pick your brains, Paul. Are you going to the Festival for Education in July?
Yeah, we've got a stall there, and so we're going to be publicising, but I think also we're going to try and use it as a slightly disruptive opportunity as well. We're going to host some climate activists and run a workshop there as well.
Nice. Yeah,
and hopefully create something out of that as well. But yeah, the Festival of Education, we were there last year. It's a good opportunity to get everyone together, and I mean it's an incredible site, isn't it? That school.
It's a beautiful site, isn't it? And they've got lots of opportunities for eating and drinking your way around the place as well. I tend to put an offer in to speak because then I get in for free. So I'm speaking again this year, but and we're going to be putting climate action plans together in a kind of workshop format as well. So we'll certainly be pointing them at things like yourselves, because climate action plans, it's such an individual thing. You know, I think people can do what's relevant to them. You know, one kind of assumes that they've had a look at their electricity bills, gas bills, and expenses bills. But if they haven't, that's obviously one place to start. But in terms of pedagogy, there's so many options, you know, as to what suits them and their team. So I think it should be a really kind of positive session where people can actually get some thinking time and jot down some actions for their climate action plan. Because there's also no requirement to have lots on your climate action plan. You know, you can have 1 or 2 or 3 actions, or you can have 50. You know, it just depends where you are on the journey and how long term your plan is. Okay, I think we'll get started, even though we're still pretty quiet on the call. I'm just trying to see if I've got any that I can't see. I think we have actually. Oh yeah, we have. So we've got Claire Brown. Where are you from?
I'm from N Family Club.
N Family Club. Oh, congrats. Yeah, that's great to hear. You're doing really well with your expansion, aren't you?
Yeah, it's going really well.
How many have you got now?
27.
27. Okay, you're catching
Yeah.
us up.
Yeah.
Ready to take us in due course. Excellent. Welcome. And we've got Suzanne Gibbon. Suzanne, are you on the line? I can see your picture, but I can't.
Hi, sorry, I've got a problem with my video today.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, sorry about that. But I'm here. I'm just from Let's Go Zero. Paul's done amazing work with us, so I'm just here to support as well and ask him questions.
Okay, that's super. Thank you very much. And that's Busy Bees, yes?
From Let's Go Zero.
Let's Go Zero. Oh, sorry, different name. Okay, Let's Go Zero here as well. Fantastic. And Diane, you've made it. I thought you were traveling. We've got your apologies in for traveling.
No, I was doing a presentation for Middlesex University, and I was doing it from 12 till 1, and so when I was doing it I wasn't sure whether I'd have to stay afterwards. So it was my traveling was for another one that we were doing another time.
Okay.
And I was traveling, so
Okay,
so I'm here.
fair enough. Welcome. And we've got Emma. Which Emma are you, Emma? If you can put it in the we've got something in the chat. Maybe that's that one. No, that's Diane. It's just we can't like
That was me just saying I'm here.
That's fine. Super. Okay, so we've got Emma, but I'm not sure where you're from, Emma.
I'm a lecturer at Birmingham City University. This is the first forum I've attended with you.
Oh, welcome. Well, it's lovely to see you. I think the universities are doing really well now with their climate action plans and things, aren't they?
Yeah, my research is focused on integrating sustainability into our early childhood programs, hence why I'm here with you guys.
Brilliant. Okay, very, very nice to see you. And we've got Sam as well. Actually see Sam. Sam,
Hi
do you
there.
want to just introduce yourself quickly?
Yes, I'm at Community Playthings and I look after sustainability and quality and safety. And we've just launched a net zero program. I don't know how you you call it exactly, but yeah, we've signed up and we're on that journey.
Fabulous. That's really great to hear. Thank you, Sam. Okay, if anyone else comes on late, perhaps just we'll get them to put something in the chat. But we'll crack on with the meeting. Can you see my share? That's just to introduce the forum, and this is our meeting agenda. And today we're mostly going to be talking or listening to the Ministry of Eco-Education telling us what's going on. We don't tend to go over the last minutes because if any corrections are received, we do them on the website and live. There weren't any corrections received, but if anyone is new to these meetings, that's the link to go and see previous meetings, minutes, and recordings as well. And I'm gonna leave upcoming dates for now and hand over to Paul and Hannah. Do you need to have the screen?
Yes, please.
Paul, excellent. So I'll stop my share. So we can always come back if we need to. And Paul, is it you or Hannah that needs the?
I'm going to start, I think, and then I'm going to hand over to Hannah. So I think Hannah,
Both of you.
would you like to share some things as well afterwards? Is it screen share will be?
Yeah, I've just got a little YouTube video, that's all.
Perfect. I've made you both co-hosts
Well,
so
thank you
that
so
you're
much.
able to do that. Okay, Paul, over to you.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to come and speak to you. And what I'm going to do is spend maybe 20 minutes introducing you to the Ministry of Education, kind of who we are on our journey and what we've done, and then kind of hand over to Hannah to talk about the reality as a school teacher and educator and we've been really fortunate to work with Hannah for a number of years actually, and have been up and visited her at her school and seen some of the wonderful things that she's been doing. So yeah, I'll just let me screen share. Sorry, let me find. Here we are. Okay. So the Ministry of Eco-Education is a charity that existed for about 2 years now, and we're funded by the Green Britain Foundation. And I'll talk a bit more about who that is in a second. But we've essentially set ourselves up as a collaboration of teachers. So we're very much from the ground up. It's about sharing best practice between teachers, sort of seeing what works and sharing that. And also, the key part of our aim as well is to embed sustainability across the curriculum, seeing that as the heart of what schools do day to day, and appreciating that in order to make schools truly sustainable, we need to make it happen in the nuts and bolts of each lesson, and it needs to be everyone's responsibility and everyone to see how they can play a role in this. So it's sort of shifting away from that model where traditionally it's been seen as one person's responsibility and they sort of push the agenda within a school, but often the responsibility is left to them. So that's one of our main driving forces, is teachers coming together. It's all about embedding it across the curriculum in lessons, and that's, I guess, also for every pupil, and sharing that responsibility across the whole staff. So this, the Ministry of Eco-Education is funded actually by Dale Vince through the Ministry of Eco-Education, through the Green Britain Foundation. And Dale is the founder of Ecotricity, which is the UK's largest renewable energy company. Dale's got a really interesting kind of background and story. He was a New Age traveller, then got involved in renewable energy through the Glastonbury festivals. He actually set up the first wind turbine at one of the Glastonbury festivals, where people were coming with mobile phones and wanted to charge them kind of in the 1990s. And then that snowballed into setting up an energy company. Dale, I guess, is also a real environmental activist. He backs and supports a whole variety of other organisations like Sea Shepherd UK, which is a marine conservation organisation, as well as a whole variety of others. But also one of the main things he does is he's the owner of Forest Green Rovers, which is the most sustainable football club in the world. All the players are vegan, pitch is organic, and the football club in particular is a really interesting one because it's a vehicle to be able to talk about sustainability with an audience that you wouldn't traditionally associate sustainability with. And he's got the football club to the stage now where all of the food that's provided is vegan, and the fans come and kind of everyone is part of that journey and story. The other thing that he set up recently, which I think is quite a quirky one, is a company called Sky Diamond that sucks atmospheric carbon out of the sky. So sort of pollution that people are putting in the sky, they suck it out. And then in a laboratory, they use renewable energy to turn that into diamonds. So Sky Diamond. And part of the reason to tell you all of this is it really colours and influences a lot of what we're doing and our sort of direction. Dale's got a vision for a green Britain, through his experience of running these green companies. He really has a blueprint of how this can be done, and there's lots that we can apply to other sectors and teachers can learn from as well as the idea that all of these companies and the football club as well are really good examples of sustainability. Dale recently published a book called Manifesto, which kind of sets out a lot of that as well. So that's quite an interesting read. So as an organisation, we started about 2 years ago, and what we did is we did some research, and we sort of set out, which I'm sure everyone on this call kind of appreciates this, that teachers, they really lack the time and the knowledge and the ability to go and find all of the great resources that already exist. There definitely isn't a shortage of resources to teach sustainability, but the problem is being able to find those. And then I guess also knowing how you can link that into the curriculum and how you can use them in order to achieve what you also need to through the sort of national curriculum. And I guess there's that sense of being overwhelmed. But what we see that as, though, is both an opportunity and an opportunity also then to kind of subvert the curriculum. So in a minute, I'm going to talk more about teaching the national curriculum, but through an environmental lens. And again, I'm sure lots of people on this call have got examples of how they do that and how they achieve that, those sorts of things. And what we're wanting to do is really mainstream that so that it's something that everyone is really comfortable with. The other thing to mention as well is then there's obviously the enthusiasm from young people and a real interest. And again, that goes all the way down to the early years as well. You know, there's children at all levels who have a real enthusiasm for the natural world and the rest of nature and want to spend time and learn about those sorts of things. So yeah, we basically say that we've brought together all of the free teaching materials that already exist. So we have saved teachers the time and the energy of finding those by bringing them together, and then we've added value to that by weaving them together into series of lessons. And we use something called big questions to frame that, and I'll introduce some of those in a minute. But we're rearranging the national curriculum around an environmental lens, and what that allows anyone to do is to be able to teach this right now, because also we're coming from a perspective of urgency, in that sense of everyone needs to do as much as they can within their the circumstances at the moment. And we actually do have, I think, teachers kind of often misunderstand what is possible within their situation, and often teachers can see quite a narrow lens of what they think they have to do. But what we're trying to do is open up people's imaginations and get them to understand, or help them to understand, that we can do so much more with what we've got at the moment. In terms of what we've pulled together then, we wanted to make sure it had a really rigorous foundation as well. And so we've got kind of 4 principles or kind of key pillars that that form the foundation of everything we've created. The first thing is a real inquiry approach. So we use big questions to frame this sort of learning journey. What we're also sorry, is that someone just needs to turn off their microphone? So we also want to encourage more of an adventurous approach to kind of in a learning style. So as well as wanting to shift the what is being taught, or kind of that environmental aspect, we're also trying to encourage teachers and educators to be a bit bolder, I guess, in terms of their approach in the classroom, and shift the pedagogy slightly as well. And a lot of the activities that we're trying to, we signpost to and encourage are often involve aspects of outdoor learning and encourage kind of a more adventurous style. We're also looking at that sense of balance between humans and the rest of nature, and that's something we're really explicit about in terms of the language that's used, making sure that we reframe the idea of humans as a part of nature rather than separate from. And often, lots of the way that schools kind of explore this is nature as a resource and something to exploit, instead of actually understanding that relationship of humans being part of it. And then the last one is a real systems thinking approach, and that comes in 2 strands. It's partly what we're trying to encourage, as well as a real cross-curricular approach, which actually is much easier in early years. And we're now going through the process of shifting it to a kind of key stage 3 model, and looking at how secondary schools can apply this. But I think particularly in primary and early years, this is actually something that comes much easier, that sense of subjects being interconnected. But the other part of this as well is the idea of asking questions that show how the world is interconnected, and really exposing that interconnected nature. And again, hopefully that comes to light when we look at some of the questions. So our journey started in Minchinhampton, and Nick Moss is the head teacher there. So this is a primary school that is near where Ecotricity are based, and it was 2 years ago. We worked really closely with the staff there. They kind of had the seeds of an eco curriculum, and again, I think there's lots of schools across the country who are in, or they are now in, a situation that Minchinhampton were 2 years ago, and are thinking about doing this themselves. And what we wanted to do was help kind of develop that at Minchinhampton, but also turn it into something that was transferable. And I guess also in terms of what Cheryl was saying earlier as well, this is all free, and it's free because of the Green Britain Foundation, and it always will be. That we recognise the cost as being a barrier, and so what we want to do is help support schools in a way that they can just access this without any kind of barriers. So the other thing I should kind of reiterate as well is that sense that whilst also working with the teachers at Minchinhampton, I pulled together all of the free teaching materials that already exist, and part of that came because Ecotricity has a network of organisations, charities, companies like Triodos and the wildlife trusts, and in a whole variety of organizations who have teaching materials and resources. And so that kind of came through that network and those experiences and partnerships. And we weave those together as well into what we've created. And you can see a little bit here, we use 7 pillars, or I guess 7 themes or topics. And this mirrors the sort of eco schools and lots of the language and framework that's used in other aspects of kind of environmental education. But you can see here a bit of a flavor of what we've done, finding all of those great teaching materials and then weaving them together so that over a series of lessons or activities that you as a teacher can pull from lots of different materials and resources. So one thing we've got is a big database, and again, you know, there's a few examples of this of charities that kind of host this kind of thing. And again, the thing that we're trying to do is make it crowd-sourced. So this is something that's open access. Anyone can access this spreadsheet. Anyone could use this just as a resource to kind of help their planning. And also what we're really looking for is for teachers to feed in, and that's something we've been actively encouraging and developing for people to also send in their ideas of what should be if they think something's missing, or if they think they've got a really great example of something they already do. So this just in terms of our journey then, we started with Minchinhampton, and then we spent a year working with 15 primary schools across the country. And those schools come from a really diverse background, both in terms of demographics, geography, all those sorts of things, wanting to prove that this is appropriate for any setting. What we didn't want to do is fall into that trap of people thinking this was a sort of rural, middle class, kind of wealthy curriculum, and instead wanted to sort of challenge that. What we also did, and I'll talk a bit more in a second about that, is we looked then with those 15 schools about the impact, because obviously making sure that everything we did was evidence informed and sort of based on research was a really fundamental part as well. And we've released, well, at the end of that year, we released an impact report to outline the work that we did. Since then, though, we've been sharing these resources, and I'll share in a minute a link so that you can just sign up and then you'll be able to access all of the resources. We now have just over 900 schools, and by the end of this summer term we're hoping to have 1,000 schools who are engaged with the curriculum. Now those schools are from early years all the way up to Key Stage 3, so we're working with that full spectrum now. In terms of that secondary journey, it really started last year, where we had then 10 schools that we were working with, a way to be able to adapt this to the Key Stage 3 kind of timetabling and structures and all those sorts of things. And also just at the bottom there, we've in the last year been running a sort of competition as well. This has been for secondary schools, but something called the Younger in Britain Challenge, which has very much been about developing student-led climate action within local communities. Because what we also want to do with this curriculum and with this support is help schools to engage their local community and act as a bit of a catalyst, so that then, you know, young people either are creating something that's shared with the local community, or the local community is invited into the school. And I know Hannah's got lots of really good examples of those sorts of things. These are just then a taster of some of the people who've been involved in the process. Again, what we've really wanted to do is build on the success and the expertise of people across the country, and we're constantly kind of bringing people in and on board. We've been doing that recently through something called climate teacher gatherings that we're hosting across the country. We had our first on Saturday in Southampton, and we're in Bristol next week, and then in London, and we're kind of in the next term, or I guess year, we're going to be traveling around the country hosting events to bring physically people together and kind of share expertise. What I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to just show you a couple of other spreadsheets just to bring it to life a little bit more. Let's see. Well, actually, yes, let's jump in here, because I think then what we can do is have a look a little bit more at what's appropriate for early years. So we've got inquiry questions that are grouped together by different themes, and those are 7 themes, and I'll show something that makes it a bit more sense in a second. But just to focus on the early years aspects, what we've got is 5 inquiry questions that are really broad in their nature, and what they do is they weave together a whole variety of the early years curriculum. And you can see there that they've got outcomes of a growing project and storytelling and building a model. But what I would also say, though, is that even though other inquiry questions are targeted towards other key stages, it's you as an educator can be inspired and kind of take inspiration from all of what we've created. And we've now got, I think, more than 60 of these inquiry questions. And so the idea is it's meant to be as flexible for you as an educator as you want. And you can essentially take whatever you want, or as much or as little. But the idea just being that it's a way to inspire more education for sustainability. If I just jump in now to the website, I'm also just going to use this a little bit to talk about the other aspects of what we've pulled together. So the curriculum resources are brought together in these 7 themes or topics. And when you get login access to this, you can access all of these materials, and you can access all of the questions, and you can kind of see how each lesson pulls together resources from lots of different organizations, and you can kind of see how that works. So when we were working with the 15 pioneer schools, we realized that they needed a bit more of a journey as well, that they needed also to kind of more of a whole school approach, and to see how this fitted rather than just giving them the curriculum resources. So what we created was something called a 5-step journey. And actually the curriculum aspect and starting to actually use some of the teaching materials is the 3rd step in the journey. And actually it starts by saying you need to really have a conversation as a learning community. So both with the students, but also parents and teachers and governors, and involve everyone. And that's very much around making this truly sustainable. You need to bring everyone along in the process. So what we've got are some materials to support communicating with that audience, but also some surveys and questions to use both with all of the staff, and then also some of the students. And then also we use the Nature Connection Index as well as a way of measuring the relationship with the rest of nature. And then the next step is starting to explore staff training opportunities. We've got resources that we've pulled together from other organizations to help map the curriculum. So looking at what you already do and starting to see where the overlaps and the kind of first steps are. And then also materials to help map the school site or the grounds that you've got access to, or it might be somewhere nearby, and thinking about how you can incorporate those as learning opportunities into your curriculum as well. And then obviously then the 3rd step is starting to take some first steps with some of the teaching materials and thinking about which topics you might start incorporating or not. So just going back then to here we are. I'm just wanting to talk a little bit more about the impact of our first year and the sort of survey, the responses that we gathered, before I then hand over to Hannah. So we were working with 15 schools, and that was just short of 5,000 young people and about 450 teachers. And there's a map just to show you the sort of breadth of where those schools were, a real variety of locations. But this is a summary of what we found, is that through using the approach and the curriculum materials, there was an increase in the whole school community's connection with nature. There was also then an increase in pro-environmental behaviours in terms of looking after the rest of nature, but also we saw an impact on the engagement with the local community, so the idea of actively engaging in a really positive way. We also then saw a response in terms of teachers feeling more supported, but also feeling more hopeful as well, in terms of kind of ideas of the climate and nature crisis. And obviously we also then saw an increase in people's knowledge and understanding. Just digging down into that a little bit deeper, what we actually saw was teachers being 71% more confident. That before this, they were often as a teaching community not very confident around sustainability, but with this quite explicit approach, kind of felt that it had an impact. A 53% increase in their sense of hope. And then in terms of nature connection, this was recorded with parents, governors, teachers, and the students as well, looking at their nature connection. And what we found is that it was quite a significant increase. So before the year of kind of engaging with the Ministry of Eco-Education, this is a value between 0 and 100, and near 100, the kind of more positive, the greater your relationship with the rest of nature. Before, we had across all of the schools a score of 67, a UK average is 61. And what scientific research suggests is we need a value of 70 or more in order to have the change we need for a sustainable future. And what we found is through using our framework that schools were seeing, the average score was 85. So there's a really significant increase in the kind of connection with the rest of nature. Just then talking about what we're doing into the future. So to continue scaling our kind of approach, we're increasingly working with academy trusts. So Windsor Academy Trust is one in particular that we're working, we're doing considerable amount of work helping them spread the curriculum across all of their schools. And then the other one is with local authorities, and the local authority approach is quite an interesting one because we're working with the climate change officer at Northumberland County Council, and we've created a booklet that takes the Ministry of Eco-Education kind of big questions and then fits it into a local context. And it gives the opportunity for schools to see how projects within the local community and sort of things that the local authority are doing help feed in to answer many of the questions that we've kind of come up with. And I think that's quite an interesting one that we're looking to develop as well with other local authorities, to be able to help schools locally to be able to interact with the Ministry of Eco-Education. I guess the other bit there as well is we've been working with the Premier League partly through the Forest Green Rovers. So we've created some teaching materials for primary children, and we're actually also at the Cheltenham Science Festival in the coming weeks, again hosting some workshops based on some of the materials that we've created. What I'm really keen to do though is to hand over to Hannah, because Hannah is a really good example of a teacher who is living this day to day, and so much of what Hannah, has been doing anyway has fed into what we've created and sort of shared with other schools. So Hannah, are you happy to sort of pass the baton to you?
Yeah, that's fine. Hello everyone, my name's Hannah Tomblin. I'm a part-time nursery teacher at Diamond Wood Academy, which is in Dewsbury, which is sort of between Leeds and Huddersfield. The area I teach in is an area of really high deprivation, multiple deprivation. At school we have about 17 languages as well. Most of our nursery children come in not speaking English or not having language at all. So oracy has been a big push of ours, and the way we've done that since I moved into nursery is we run our nursery curriculum from the world aspect of development matters. So everything is very, very hands-on, very practical, and children experiencing things in real life. So I have just got a little video. I actually made this for Let's Go Zero when I did their webinar, but I thought I'd share this so you just sort of see what our school is like. And we're just nursery tier 2, we're only infants as well. So. Right. So just that gives you a little sort of taste of what we do at Diamond Wood. You'll notice on there the same little 12 faces keep popping up because that's our very active Eco Council, who help me tell the whole school about all our eco issues. They do assemblies. We were out last week in the community planting a plant for Kirklees, our council. So we're trying to promote green spaces in Ravensthorpe and positivity about Ravensthorpe, because unfortunately we have a lot of violence, we have a lot of fly tipping, a lot of antisocial behaviour. So Eco Council have planted up a planter for Ravensthorpe in bloom, but when we went to the AGM, Eco Council asked that all the plants be pollinators, so that to attract pollinators. So it's not a traditional council planter with straight rows of lovely bedding plants at all. It's lovely and wild, and we've planted wildflower seeds as well. Nursery. So our nursery curriculum links to the whole school curriculum. So we have an ongoing theme, we have a value. So this half term, it's been the great outdoors. So everybody throughout school has been doing planting. We've linked that. In Yorkshire, we have the Great Yorkshire Show, and there is a veg box competition, which we're hoping to go to this year. We're getting judged just after half term, but we've linked that into our curriculum about growing our own, how, you know, growing it, cooking it, eating it, getting recipes from all our different families. So one of the Romanian mummies has brought me a recipe. I've got a traditional Pakistani dish recipe now, so that we're pulling on the children's heritage. And they've absolutely loved it. We use tapestry in nursery and reception. So we've put memos out because all our nursery children have grown a bean, and we link that to our key text, which is Jasper's beanstalk. And the parents are putting on tapestry, the plotting the growth and how much it's grown, how they're looking after their bean. So we have a really good relationship with our parents through tapestry. You know, we always say we're sort of stronger together. We're all working together for these children. Our early years is set up so the children independently access their resources, both in nursery and reception. So we have a little shed that they can go into. There are things like binoculars, magnifying glasses, clipboards with either RSPB spotters guides or the Woodland Trust Nature Detectives or the Wildlife Trust's spotters guides. And I've recently found out through my science planning, because I'm a science lead as well, you can make your own spotters guides now. So if you wanted children to go out and find something in the playground, say some wildflowers, you can actually put on the ones you know they are going to find. So rather than walking around looking for red champion that they're never going to find in the middle of Ravensthorpe, but they will find a buttercup and a dandelion. So it can make it really bespoke to you. And then it's like Paul said, you know, what I did was I looked at those when we were Pioneer School. There was the questions, and I just brought that down to the early years curriculum, and you know, linking it to that aspect of the world and the natural world. Is, you know, it's because I am passionate about getting outdoors, and my team are. It's worked really, really well for us. Our children are really, really well connected with nature. Our science, our biology is very, very high. They're under children's understanding. We have, you know, the Eco Council are amazing. They presented at the Climate Change Festival for Kirklees. And when you think the oldest of them is 7, and when they actually did that, I don't think any of them were 7. I think there were 6. I just think they're wonderful. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you want to know. I'm just trying to think what else we've done. We've done so much.
Hannah, I was going to say, like, some of the themes that to really emphasize is when we've come and visited you, it's amazing how you use the environment as a vehicle to be able to integrate that languages and the culture and the whole variety, and you were bringing parents on site and using the environment as a way to sort of bring language was a really one, wasn't it, to kind of
Yeah.
explore language and words. I don't know if you want to talk
Yeah.
more.
So like I say, because a lot of our children come with absolutely no language, not even home language, it's a really big push for us to develop all that oracy. We do something called word of the week as well, and we make in nursery, we make it really relevant. So it was at the beginning of this half term, bud, which it's not a hard word, but for children then to be going out to our willow and finding the buds and talking about them, they've got that concrete learning right in front of them, rather than a picture in a book or on a computer. It's real life and it's relevant to them. We've worked a lot this year. I've been working with a charity called Support to Recovery, which is a mental health charity in Dewsbury, and they are about getting people out into nature. So we've been running parental workshops with Elizabeth from S2R. So they've made bunting from what's it called? Is it Harper's Ermine? When you bash leaves and it makes a print onto the fabric. They've done outdoor cooking, and this week and last week they've just started a DIY workshop. So last week they made 3 birdhouses from a pallet for the outdoor area, and the children go up after the adult session to do some well-being work as well. But it is all about getting them outside, connecting with nature, and using the outdoor area for actually exploring. The nursery morning children collected 18 snails this morning. But then they brought them all to the veg box. I was a bit like, we're not putting them in there. We need to go make them a book hotel. So they are little nature lovers in nursery, especially.
The other bit as well, Hannah, I just wanted to draw attention to, you mentioned it with the links with the local authority. So is it Sal at Kirklees Council? I don't know.
Sal Kerry.
Regardless of where anyone is, I think those relationships, and it does take a bit of effort, doesn't it, to make contact and sort of build those relationships. But I think you've had so much out in terms of opportunities out of those sorts of connecting with the local authority. And as I don't know if there's tips of how a school might be able to do that, or the best way to start it.
Yeah, I think if it's quite hard, because myself, I'm not good at pushing myself forward at all, but I'll happily push Eco Council forward. But I think it's just really getting yourself out there. We use Twitter a lot. So if you look on our website, our Twitter feed runs along. Eco Council are doing something every week, no matter what, they're out there. So I think promoting yourself through your Twitter or whatever your social media is, your newsletters at school, it does get the council get to know you and other companies get to know you. So we work with a community interest company as well called Fair and Funky, and they will tell other schools about us as well. So I think a lot of it is word of mouth. And I mean, Kirklees is it's very, very widespread. So you're sort of going from nearly Oldham, Manchester to Leeds, and there's some very, very rural, tiny villages in Kirklees, and then there's some in the middle of Huddersfield, so in the middle of Dewsbury. So it's sort of networking as well. So we are on the Kirklees Climate Youth Forum as well. So it's just sharing that good practice. And I think I know when I've been on that, I talked to a teacher about how to do like the green flag application, because it is quite daunting now, and it's very different from when they used to come in and assess, because it's filling it in online, and they just got their first green flag last week.
Does that also then, it's that, it doesn't need to be a sole responsibility of one person, in the sense that you can pull in the expertise. So you're saying, is it Fair and Funky? They've got an expertise and they do some really great stuff. It's then about bringing them in and hosting them. And I think, most schools will find that actually there are people or organizations, that within their local community that and that again is that's an aspect of sustainability, about schools inviting those sorts of people in and giving them a platform and a space to be able to do the great things that they do.
Because I mean, my children's school's only up the hill from here, and their topic was chocolate, and they wanted to go to the chocolate store in York, but it was just so expensive with the coaches and everything else. But actually Fair and Funky went in and did a fair trade chocolate workshop for them, which they said was actually much better, because they weren't traveling. they've got more time. They still got to do all the things about the tasting, the ingredients, and then on top of that, they got to learn about fair trade. So yeah, good networking, good linking, sharing ideas and things. I think is really important.
Cheryl, I don't know if we want to open it up to the floor or what, in terms of questions.
Yes, I think that's a really good idea. I'm sure some people will have some questions, and while they're thinking about those, just draw people's attention to the chat, because you guys have put a number of really useful links of screenings and access to the curriculum resources and so on. And I've just emailed Thabani to see if we can put them up on Gecko as well separately. So those just draw your attention to.
What I've also got as well is I've got a couple of examples of early years planning that more detailed. If anyone, if it's maybe a bit more niche, but if anyone wanted to look at some of those and talk about those now, if we've got time, that's something else we could do.
Yeah, I think that's always interesting. Obviously, quite a lot of nurseries planning is more child-led, schema-led. Looking at their interests and developing them. But I think it's always useful to share what works for you or for others, because some people might like to use them in their own way.
Well, maybe I'll just bring it up quickly now whilst anyone's thinking of any questions. This is a topic called what is a community? So that idea, I think the early years materials in this kind of curriculum space look at the real fundamentals. So like the idea or concept of community or the idea of growing or nature. And the other thing that we didn't talk about was each of these topics or kind of big questions has literacy embedded in with it as well, because obviously that's such an important strand. So these are books that teachers have suggested. And so these are examples that link to this concept of community. But you can see here also how this brings together the early years kind of planning. There's the really explicit mention of STEM and maths and all those sorts of things that are woven into this.
Indeed, and it can just give you ideas. I mean, where you've got to use Lego bricks, for example, you don't need to use Lego bricks, but it just gives you the prompt to compare lengths. You might want to use sticks or whatever else you've got in your setting. So that's really helpful. Just sparks the brain, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think what that also brings is there is no one answer, one curriculum that is appropriate or way to do anything for every single person in their own setting. This is very much about people as being kind of independent, autonomous kind of educators, understanding their setting and their school and making sure that they adapt and kind of pull the things that they think are most appropriate. And I think that's something that Hannah really exemplifies, is kind of understanding the setting and situation and the needs of the young people that you're kind of engaging with and thinking about how you can pull that together.
I think one of the biggest challenges is enabling the teachers to learn potentially just ahead of the children or even with the children, because a lot of children won't know where the buds are on a willow, for example. You might have teachers that don't have willow where they grew up. So it's it's about learning what the local plants are and what you can teach with the children. So when a child says, "What's that?" and you're going, "Oh, I don't know. I have to look, let's look it up." And it might be a wild cherry tree or something like that. But if you're not from the area, or if you've not had that background from your own parents learning what's what, the staff just don't know. So it's a whole learning, a whole change of culture to learn about that, so we can then share it with the children.
I think it's also as an educator, everyone themselves understanding that not everyone knows everything, and that learning process is a really important thing. And again, Hannah, maybe you've got some good examples of this where you are learning with the students as well, and actually showing that you're learning is a really good part of that as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Like I said about like using the spotters guides and things like that. I think that the early reading for nursery, it's a perfect way to do it outside, because you sort of you're getting to know those words and you're actually learning what something is called without saying bird. The children now, they can name things like magpies, pied wagtails. We love a pied wagtail. The wood pigeons, things like that. So
That's so exciting. You know.
I think as well, Hannah, you maybe referenced that everyone will be amazed and sort of surprised by how much young children, particularly the very youngest, can actually comprehend and understand. And like you say, you know, rather than just calling stuff bird, you know, they can understand that there is a, you know, the exact names of different birds and those sorts of things, that detail.
Yeah, 2-3-year-olds. It don't just have to be duck. It could be a mallard duck, and you know, and that's a boy or a male mallard duck, and so on. It's you know, it's setting them up so well for life, because if they learn about it, the more chances are that we will care about them.
Yeah, I know we in the autumn term, the second autumn term, we do animal homes, and we concentrate on owl babies, and we're really lucky that we've got Yorkshire owl experience here, and it comes in with, usually brings five different owls, but just to see from like a little owl to an eagle owl, that not all owls look like the owl babies, you know, so it's just that experience as well. And you know, an owl isn't something you're probably going to see unless you're out at evening in the countryside, you know. For our children, it is a unique experience, and again, it's having a real life owl in nursery is just amazing.
Indeed. I liked, Paul, in one of your presentations you had about the sense of hope increasing with our colleagues learning about ecology and so on. I think that is so important, because you can get so down at the thought that there just aren't potentially the owls, you know, out at night, or the bats or whatever. You just don't get to see them anymore. So when you can tie that you know, places near your nurseries, and then it just, or schools, it's so positive.
Yeah, and I think also we haven't talked about that, but that sense of eco-anxiety that I think you know, as teachers, people can often be worried that, oh, we're going to scare too much doom and gloom, we'll scare young children, or there'll be a response from parents, we'll get a sort of backlash, you know, why are you exposing our children to this sort of knowledge, or these sorts of things. And I think that in reality, those things just don't come about. Most parents are really pleased by actively engaging their children in this sort of material. And also, I think it's yes, it is being conscious about the way that we frame it and talk about it, and making sure that we always have those really small, tangible, positive action. And again, that's something that Hannah has talked a lot about, that idea, even if it's litter picking, but showing how your actions can have a really positive impact and help make the world a better place. And to do that from the very foundations of the very earliest years, I think is so fundamental to really show that as a human being, you know, we can have a positive impact through our actions.
I think it's absolutely critical, and so positive. And I really don't like it when people start talking about polar bears falling off blocks of ice and doing that in the nurseries, because that can cause nightmares and all kinds of things, and it's just not necessary for preschoolers. You know, far rather we talk about, oh, let's tidy up after ourselves and make sure there's no plastic around for the hedgehogs to eat, type thing, than trying to, you know, make them understand the enormity of the damage that us adults and our predecessors have done. And certainly I suffer from this climate anxiety from time to time if I dwell on it. So it's just best we don't. do the little things that we can do.
Yeah, that's what we do. So our eco code and our sort of strapline for our eco education, we talk about doing little steps now, and it is things like, you know, litter picking, trying to walk to school rather than coming in the car, little steps that are achievable, like you say, without absolutely petrifying a 2- and 3-year-old.
Yes, totally. Well, it's unhelpful, isn't it? We all know if we're petrified, we can't even think, never mind enjoy learning through play. And I found also that there are lots of little steps that we can take. I mean, for example, I was visiting one of our nurseries and discovered they had a row of plastic water bottles ready for forest school, and I thought, my goodness, is that happening everywhere? And then I discovered that there were plastic water bottles in the first aid emergency bags. And again, you think, no, we shouldn't be using plastic water bottles, because that means we're buying virgin plastic. We should be using the metal ones, you know, because A, they're recyclable, and B, we're not using up an endless resource, because they can just reuse them. But whenever I do like a video of our stuff, you know, you're kind of scanning to see if there's anything that's in the video that you know, that's not exemplary. And of course there always is. And I think that's okay though, because we have to be pragmatic. We're not perfect. We're on the journey. Let's not beat ourselves up about it, but just progress and make those changes, you know, as we can. So, and I noticed with plastic water bottles in Hannah's lovely video, but it doesn't detract from it, does it? It's just, oh, there's something that they could do. They're school uniform bottles or whatever they are. Could they perhaps be something other than plastic? We can't use renewable plastic. I mean, we can't use kind of upcycled plastic to make water bottles because it wouldn't be safe unless it was made from something that's really safe already. So you're more likely to have to use something else. Any thoughts about that, Hannah or Paul?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of encourage children to use a reusable water bottle.
Yeah.
And our school ones that are reusable they're low cost for our parents as well. But we try and discourage like single use.
Yeah.
Maybe also what that raises is the opportunity to pull those into learning activities. So rather than as staff of an educational kind of establishment thinking, okay, what is it we need to do? You can involve the young people. Hannah's talked about the Eco Council, but you can also wrap that into lessons that they're exploring. You know, can we go and find examples of things that maybe we could do better? You know, like you can do a treasure hunt, or you can I think there's so many opportunities to involve young people in reflecting on how sustainable you know the environment.
Switch off fortnight's a good one for that one.
Switch off fortnight, that sounds good fun. We're trying to switch off all our lights and
so that's through the pod through Eco Schools, so sort of, you know, making sure things like smart boards are turned off over lunchtime. I mean, we've got lights that turn off when there's no motion, so taps that turn off automatically, so we've introduced things like that at school. And then where there isn't, encouraging to make sure everything's turned off and not left on standby as well. We do goodbye standby. Yeah,
and that works well with, I mean, I know we've got Carl from Childbase on the line, and he's obviously coming at it from the building's point of view rather than from the pedagogy. It just shows how important it is to work with, you know, everybody in the team, each working to their own purpose. But I've certainly had problems with things like the lights turning themselves off, because the sensors are not particularly great, are they? And you can end up having lights on in the middle of the day because you have to put a screwdriver in there, I think, and kind of tweak it so they really do go off when you've got daylight. Yeah.
Ours has still got a button as well.
Yeah, so that helps. So you can actually flick them off.
Yeah.
So that's, and there are other ones there, kind of, you've got movement sensors and then you've got light sensors, haven't you? And really you want both on the same light switch.
Yeah.
And that's, but then you've also got to keep the monitoring going, because even though they've been set up correctly, sometimes we found that ours sometimes then go off, you know, and they are still coming on when we don't want them on. So then you need to go back to maintenance and say, you know, can you have a look at, is this kind of, don't accept it for the staff. You know, I'm saying to them, well, your lights are on. They say, oh yeah, it's, you know, it's come on again. And I'm going, well, what have you done about it? And, you know, it's that kind of registering how we can get them motivated to actually react and not put up with, oh, it's, you know, it's been like that for weeks and, you know, we've given up, we've reported it once and nothing's happened.
I think this feeds in also to what Suzanne's just asked in the chat. It's kind of, is there maybe certain things within the school environment that you could prioritize? You know, so you're just talking about energy there. But if I just there's
sorry,
these are the 7 pillars. And you know, so for a school environment, it's probably energy, which is the largest proportion of the carbon footprint and impact on the rest of nature, and then maybe you know, transport, food as being the kind of second and third. So I think kind of something for all schools to really start with and focus on might be energy, and then you can also think about transport and food as other ones. But those, I think, if people really want to make the greatest impact within their setting, it's thinking about the operations around those, but also then obviously thinking about how that fits into the curriculum, and are there learning opportunities, you know, exploring energy use, I don't know, a good example might be thinking about how much energy is used in a day, and I don't know, kind of trying to visualize that number or the amount, or thinking of creative ways to present that can be a way to start.
They've got those wonderful little live meters that you can plug in, and then you can actually see how much energy your kettle's using, or your fridge, or whatever else you might have in the classroom, or, you know, goodness forbid, it might be a laminator. Obviously, we don't want to be using laminators anymore, but if you do, they use a lot of energy, and the children can actually see it visually then as to how much energy it's using. I don't know, Hannah, if you've caught on, but rather than laminating stuff, use waterproof paper. That seems to be better, and you can recycle it, whereas you can't recycle something that's been laminated because you've got plastic.
Yeah, we don't tend to laminate in
not anymore. No, we used to laminate almost everything, you know, all the posters and children's labels on their pegs, and kind of everything got laminated. But we're learning as we go along, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, I think the waste topic as well, Paul's really good as well, because we worked really closely with Kirklees, who came in and did sort of the different talks about the different bins Kirklees offer, and we actually managed to get rid of one of our grey general waste bins and have an extra recycling bin.
Yeah, which saves you money, saves the council money.
I think that's also where the children then take that home with them as well, don't they, and help spread that message. And I think that's again another, you know, the more that we can do that opens up conversation where the children are going home and asking questions or telling their parents or family members around this. That's to the benefit of everything as well.
Totally agree. Oh, what's happened there? Oh, I suddenly had a screen mishap, but it's back again now. Right, let's just check the would you be able to share the teacher events you have planned? And I see you've put Bristol and London in.
Yeah, those are the ones coming up in the next month, and then from September we're going to have more. So it's kind of a keep your eyes open. Is that the word? I think we'll publicize those.
Great. Anybody else got any other questions? I don't see anything. You're welcome to take yourself off mic now if you'd like to.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
To any of you three, or maybe someone else in the conversation. I was recently at an event in London and wasn't trying to sell anything, just there to talk about sustainability. And there were about 350 people, you know, managers, owners of nurseries, mainly from the early years schools as well. And there just wasn't interest, you know, disappointingly, to talk about sustainability. You know, people were more interested in the commercial side of, you know, conversations. You know, understandably, you know, you in the early years sector are there to run businesses generally, yes, and to look after kids and the environment and everything else. But you know, when I did try to ask people, you know, where does sustainability sit in your agenda, it was most people just kind of drew a blank. You know, and when I talked about the eco schools or the green flag, what's that? No, we have a bug hotel. You know, we recycle a bit, you know, where we can, but the bigger agenda, I'm just curious, how widespread is, you know, the eco schools movement, and how does that interface with your charity, Paul, and you know, where are we at? Where, you know, in the sector? I know Child Base and other people have done amazing work, and you, Cheryl, but you know, where does the sector as a whole stand? Sorry, a bit of a big general question.
Certainly the sector in crisis at the moment because of lack of funding and short staffing. So, you know, I think when things are pretty desperate, and I mean, I've just heard of a very big group near us is in receivership now. You know, then obviously that's more of a priority. But what's sad is that they don't realize that if they look after their sustainability side, they'll actually help with their financial sustainability by looking after the environmental and the social sustainability. So it's got to be an education piece, isn't it? We've got to be saying, look, you know, if you want to survive and do well, and you want your children to do well in 30 years, you need to be on the sustainability journey. But we can't make people care, can we? All we can do is share. Paul, hopefully you're further along the line.
I was going to say, I've just dropped in the chat there about, it was only announced, was it last Friday with the outdoor learning day, was this the government's sort of the next part of this strategy around climate change. I
Yeah.
don't quite know the nuances around nurseries and to what extent nurseries will have to do this, but I know schools will be expected to have a climate action plan, and that, as far as I understand, will be like a statutory requirement that every school will have to have one of these. You know, again, I don't know if it's going to be explicit for nurseries, but that might start helping to nudge, so that rather than it being more of an optional thing that people have to come on board with this. But the thing I really understand is that sense, particularly in nurseries, is the financial pressures and staffing. And I think, you know, that's really acute at nurseries, but I think schools in general are experiencing this. And so to be then saying, oh, you really need to be conscious of this, of sustainability, you know, for many people it's just one thing too many.
Yes, and yet if they noticed about the kind of millennials, adults, and the Generation Z and all this kind of stuff, they're really interested in sustainability. So one could argue that it will help your recruitment drive if you have sustainability, you know, as part of your ethos. So but some of them just don't kind of realize that yet. And that's kind of why I try and raise my head above the parapet and say, hey, you know, have you thought about this? Because this I think you need to think about it. But some of them I just are not listening just now. And we just have to keep plugging on, I guess. And it certainly would help if the government do legislate. But when I had a conversation with the Department for Education just a couple of weeks ago, and I said, well, this is great, we're bringing the climate action plans. I'm expecting Ofsted to be inspecting that people have climate action plans. And they said, no, there's currently no plan for Ofsted to be inspecting climate action plans, even though the equivalent in Scotland are inspecting on sustainability. And I've gone back and said, that's totally unacceptable. You know, unless you're actually going to follow up with this, people are not going to be that inclined to do it. And there's ESOS for private businesses. So all the big nurseries are required to do ESOS anyway, which is the beginning of a climate action plan. It's the working out what electricity, gas, you know, all your scopes are. We're required to do that as soon as you hit 250 staff. But there doesn't seem to be many teeth in the follow-up to that. And schools seem to be exempt from ESOS, which again, to me, seems madness. Why shouldn't schools do ESOS just like anybody else does? So I think that, you know, we've got the government are behind the plot completely. And the more we can kick them to, you know, get a move on and just get on with it, the better. But while they themselves are saying, oh, well, we're only going to be carbon zero by 2050, you're thinking, what? Why 2050? You know, you can do it next year if you pull a finger out. But they're just not quite as dynamic, I think, as we are.
I think to put a positive spin on that, part of what we are then trying to say is we don't need to wait for the government. You know, we can do this, and obviously there are barriers and challenges, and but you can spin them and turn them into opportunities. You know, just as you're saying, you know, imagine a nursery selling itself as particularly environmentally and eco-minded, and both from a kind of a bringing in young people, but also staff. You know, that can be a really attractive model for certain people.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's so much we can do without having to wait to be told by the government.
Totally can. And that's certainly what we're all doing, because there's no obligation on any of us to do this. But we want to, because we see further than 3 years ahead. You know, we're looking for our children when they're adults. What's it going to be like for them then? And some of us have children and grandchildren and feel passionately that, you know, it's only fair that we look after the planet for them, for their future. And I know what doesn't work is guilt ridding, you know, people in other sectors. That doesn't work. We've got to kind of sell it on a real positive, you know, what's in it for them bonus kind of system, rather than trying to frighten people. It's like the warning signs on cigarettes don't work. People just, you know, just block off the warning signs, and humans do that. So yeah, I think, but it's for all of us to do that, isn't it? If we can do it in our own networks and our own contacts with local authorities as well, because some of the local authorities are on board, aren't they? But not all of them. You know, some of them have not realised that if they really work on things like nappies, they'll reduce, you know, the whole area's waste bill if we can get more people into proper nappies rather than you know, the one-use ones.
Was there still someone from, was it Essex? From the local authority in Essex? Are they still on the call?
Yes, I'm still listening.
I wondered if you wanted to share your kind of experience with the schools in your area.
Yeah, well, and interesting. Actually, I have nothing to do with primary school. So a lot of what you said was kind of, well, it's really interesting for me because I'm purely from early years, childminders, nurseries background, and that's where I work in now. So we are definitely pushing this climate advice pack because, as you said, this the action plans that schools have to do, nurseries don't have to. But we are really, encouraging, working with the early year settings to try and, open their eyes to the potential that is in the early years. Our approach is very much about sharing. We're really pushing that theme of sharing with, because that's what you learn in early years. You learn to share and take turns, and we have to share the planet. We have to share the space. We have to share our water, and that's kind of the angle that we've taken. But yeah, no, I think mostly people aren't on board because they're frightened. I think they're frightened of frightening the children. There's a lot of blame. Whose fault is this? Why are we in this place? It's somebody else's fault. It's not my, that kind of attitude, which isn't particularly helpful. But it is that, if 1 million people all make one small change, it's better than one big person making a big change. And that's kind of really the messaging, that we have to get everybody to do what they can. And I know there's so many barriers at this stage, but each little change we take is one step further along that journey, and one little change might lead to 2 little changes, might lead to a bigger change. But like Cheryl said, the industry is in crisis. So we are being very tentative. I think they're more closing down every day, and it's really frightening out there. But still, that message of sustainability, that message of we must recycle. The nappy thing is huge. We do subsidizing for nappies. We've got nurseries who've gone complete nappies, and even smaller than that, just wipes. Okay, nappies are a big thing, but actually, reusable flannels, really easy. And that would make a big difference. That could be maybe the small change. If nappies is too big, make a small change, just do wipes. Things like that. And so.
Oh, it's great that you're on board. I'm really thrilled. It's every single local authority that comes on board can make such a big impact.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's all everybody doing their bit, and that sort of journey to net zero. So I think we have to be halfway there by 2030, and we're still a long way off, mostly because people have no idea what their carbon footprint is. So how can we half it if we don't know what it is in the first place?
Indeed, they don't know how to measure it, and that's feels quite frightening. And as I say to colleagues in the sector, get your accountants to do the measuring. They get the bills. Yeah, they can easily there's just a basic formula that you put in to convert your kilowatt hours of electricity into carbon footprint. It's really not hard, but it is if you're looking after 30 children on the floor. You can't possibly do it then. So and the accountants are all training up now, because they're all getting the new sustainability frameworks coming in from Europe and abroad, and elsewhere. So they are, we need to get our accountants and bursars and FDs onto sustainability courses so that they can lead the way on the measurement side, so we don't have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, our FD's been marvelous. He's taken it upon himself to do a short course, and he's really genned himself up, and he gives us a great report every month, so we can identify where the issues are. And they change as you get a water leak, or as something some setting gets changed by accident on the boiler and stuff like that. And he measures how much plastic one use we're using and how much stuff we're getting from charity shops, and all that comes from the accountants department, not off the floor with the children.
But even so little childminders, some of the online calculators are so good now. You just put in your lifestyle, and it's there in black and white. So there's it's that
free with the banks. There is stuff out there, and if we can sell that it's actually going to save them money as well, which will help them survive this financial crisis, then I think we're on to a winner. Actually, it's a really good opportunity. When people are interested in cutting their electricity and gas bills, this is the time to say, well, actually, you can.
It's a tragic truth that economics will drive climate change faster than natural disasters or anything else.
I think so. If the government were to start really whacking up the tax on virgin plastic use, and give benefits to people who are using recycled stuff, they could really help us change it round. But it does take the government, politicians, to see longer than 2 or 3 years to the next election.
that's one of the other messages we're giving, because obviously lots of settings, they might be in a church hall, or they might be, you know, in a building that they're not in control of where the waste goes, and they say, oh, we can't recycle because it all goes into the same bin, or and that infrastructure is not there. But the two messaging of that is, first of all, feedback to us, and then we can challenge the landlords and change that. But the second one is actually, don't lose the learning, still recycle. Get the children to separate it. You know, don't just go, oh, we've only got one bin. You know, those good habits need to be introduced from the age of 2 onwards. They have to, there's not just a bin, there's a coloured bin, and name it, you know, so they start to understand what their, you know, things are made of and where it goes and how we recycle.
Indeed. And we've certainly had conversations with our landlords and said, you know, it will save you money if you actually get us 2 bins, you know, and you can actually reduce the collection time as well. And when we've shown them the figures, you can actually reduce your waste charge quite a lot. And then they begin to get interested.
Exactly. And that is getting that messaging out. We can really, you know, help, you know, landlords to do that, you know, go back to them and really challenge. There's no excuse for having a single bin these days.
No, none at all. I agree with you. The church are on board. I don't know if you've noticed, the Church of England and other churches also are beginning to get switched on to caring for the environment, and that's quite positive, because a lot of our nurseries you know, nationally are using church halls, community halls and things like that, so that's helpful. Cool. Right, anybody else got any questions at all, or should I just go back to the agenda just briefly, see if I can share my screen again. Oh, maximize that. Share screen. Just there are only a couple of things to go over, but before we go on, thank you very, very much indeed, Paul and Hannah. Really, you know, appreciate your presentation. Lots of great ideas for everyone to use. There's some dates on your diaries that I could share. I mean, the ones that I've put in, like the Chigwell London Borough event, and the Havering Council event. Again, those are local authority organised events that I just happen to be speaking at on sustainability. But it does appear that some of the local boroughs are getting really interested in this. And I wanted to share it with you so you could all speak to your local authorities and see if we can get them to also host some more events. I think there must be some kind of a budget pot somewhere that they can spend on sustainability, that they can access. So now, you know, it would be a good idea to take that on board. The Reuters Impact event I put because they sent me a thing. It sounds absolutely wonderful, but really expensive, so I can't go to that. The Big Green event Southampton is a free one, so I am going to that one. In fact, I've got a table there that I can share good practice in early years on that. But obviously those are just ones I'm interested in, but if I'm very keen that you should share dates that you're involved in as well, so that we can, you know, share those more widely. I know NMT, Nursery World, people like that, some of them are doing sustainability bits on that as well. So we've done that. That's the link for the latest thing. So a couple of people have mentioned the government have just launched this leadership and climate action plans thing, and it's just gone live. That's the link if anybody wants it. And the other thing I just wanted to, there's a couple more links there as well. So the LEAF sustainability strategy has actually been put up by the Department for Education as a good example. And it is beautiful and really interesting. It doesn't have very many numbers in it, which I thought was interesting. I'm not criticizing it, but that's an area where you know, you can measure impact, and I was very pleased to see that on today in those presentations where they were saying, you know, X percentage of people were doing this and that, and I think that kind of measurement is quite useful, although not everything can be measured. Doesn't mean it's no good if it can't be measured. And then there's this new sustainability resource that's also been put up that Diane's been that's created, and she's agreed to actually discuss that resource with us at one of our next meetings, which would be great. And the next meeting we've got Suzanne presenting us from Let's Go Zero again, so we can share resources, good ideas, and so on. So Diane's agreed to that, so you can, question mark's not there. And I thought it'd be really good to go over some climate action plans in November. So I'm hoping Leaf will come and do it, seeing as theirs has been held up as an exemplar. But if anybody else also would like to share those and we can discuss that, I can certainly share Tops's, then we can do that as well. And that's me done talking. So has anybody else got anything they'd like to comment on that, or volunteer ideas for even further down meetings, or themselves talking about something? Sharing research, always useful. The chat. Yeah, there's some really lovely links that have come on here. Education Nature Park pilot. That I think is quite challenging for early years, because our children aren't really old enough to be able to input you know, what they've got in their gardens onto the website. That would really have to be a staff job, and do they have time while they're looking after children to do that? And they don't have the non-contact time that school teachers are sometimes allocated. So I think that's going to be a real challenge for us. I'm not sure that we'll be able to engage too much in that. Other people might have a different opinion. Happy to learn. Okay, nothing else on the chat. And I'll take off the screen sharing now so I can see you. Lovely. So unless anyone else got anything they'd like to comment or say out loud, I'm just reading the chat. In there. Okay, in which case I will bring the meeting to an end. And thank you all very, very much indeed for coming and sharing your information, and onwards and upwards we can, I'm sure we can do even better as the year goes on and into the future. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.